my name is Chris Surface. I'm from Tacoma, Washington. I'm also the AACT president this term, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today. It's going to be a good one, and we're happy that you're here. The Q&A box is open, so as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions for our wonderful guest, who we'll introduce in a second, please feel free to put those into that, and we will answer them as they come through. You can also upvote those questions. So if you see your question asked and you want to have it asked even faster, you can upvote that, and we'll get to the top of the list. This is the first of our new webinar series, and we're so happy to start off with one of our very good friends from Music Theater National, Mr. John Prignano. And John, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and do your bio, and then we will get right into your presentation because there's a lot of good information for you to cover today.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everyone. My name is John Prignano. For those of you who don't know me, I am currently the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Education and Development at Music Theater International. So most of you, I think most of you know me either by name or in person. I've been around for a while. I've been at MTI for over 25 years and been an active member of AACT since then, and lots of other theatrical organizations. Today, you know, when we were talking about doing this webinar, one of the things I wanted to be able to do was kind of help clarify all the questions and just the confusion that's happening with how theater is being performed right now. So what we're going to get into today is talking about streaming, what type of streaming rights, what are remote rights, what are online editions, all that kind of stuff. And for those of you who have been in a workshop with me before, know I love questions. I love to just kind of like start digging into your questions because that always opens that up into a bigger conversation that informs me and gives me a lot of information that I can take back to MTI and actually make decisions. And you know, and they could have some really significant impact on how we do stuff. So, you know, no question is too crazy or too silly or too insignificant. So just ask away and we'll get to them. So I'm going to start with, there was a handout that we sent to everyone. I'm just going to kind of break that down. You know, streaming rights, I think everyone's assumption early on was, you know, if I have the rights to the show, I can stream the show. And that's not true because when MTI acquires the rights, what we do is we acquire something called the grand rights, which is the right to perform the show as written from opening to closing, everything in the middle, but in a live stage setting. Okay, the whole idea of getting a license from MTI is to perform the show live on stage. So, you know, when COVID happened and everyone had to stop performing on stage, one of the pivots that MTI did fairly quickly, and we did because of conversations I had with people like you, we started to acquire streaming rights and develop a platform for streaming, okay? So we went back to all the authors and said, do you have streaming rights? Because in a lot of cases, even the authors didn't have the rights to give to us for us to give to you. So we had to start with those authors and say, do you have streaming rights? If you do, can we please have those rights to be able to pass on to our licensees? So right now, I'm happy to say we have over 100 titles that have streaming rights. That information is all on our website. So if you go to our website and you look up the COVID page, you'll see a list of all the shows that have streaming rights and what type of streaming rights they have. And I'm going to get into that in a second. Okay. We even have a list of shows that are an absolute no for streaming rights. Okay. Because there's some titles where they just didn't have the rights. So the different types of streaming, you know, there is the live stream, which basically is what it sounds like. You set cameras up in your theater where the seats would be, you perform the show on stage, you capture it with the cameras, and then you transmit it to your patrons remotely so that they can see it at their homes, okay? So that's basically a live capture. You're capturing a live performance and you're transmitting it to the patrons who have purchased tickets to see it, okay? The second option is scheduled stream. So basically, when you live capture a show, you capture it, you video it at the same time, okay? Then you set a specific time to be able to schedule stream those. So say you did your capture on a Wednesday afternoon, you captured your final dress rehearsal. Then you want to schedule it for Friday at 8, Saturday at 2, Saturday at 8. So your patrons will purchase tickets specifically to Friday at 8 or Saturday at 3 or Saturday at 8. Then you upload the capture that you've done of your live performance. You upload that capture to the platform. And at those times, the platform will give access to the patrons who have purchased tickets to watch the show. That is a scheduled stream. The third option in streaming is called on demand. That is basically kind of like the Netflix model. You live capture something, you have it in the can, you basically leave it on the platform so that people can purchase tickets and the patrons will have 48 hours to watch it at their leisure, okay? Those are the three different types of streaming. Live capture, scheduled streaming, and on demand. There is now a fourth option that we've been able to acquire the rights for, and that is called remote performances. This remote kind of gets a little confusing because everyone thinks, you know, it's like, it sounds like a second set of rights. It is, but you have to have streaming rights in order to have remote rights. Remote rights give you, as the producer, the right to capture individual performances via a platform, via like a platform like Zoom, or even like, you know, individually capturing it on your cell phone or individually capturing it on your computer. Remote rights give you the right to capture it individually. Then you will have to then splice it together. You'll have to splice the vocal tracks together, then you have to splice the video together, and then you have a production. But it's a production that is done via capture via Zoom or another platform very similar to Zoom. But so what do? You now have this capture, right? How do you get it to your patrons? Well, then you stream it. In most cases, it'll be a scheduled stream because, you know, when you remote capture something, you're going to have to literally splice it all together. And splicing it all together, what does that sound like? Pretty much sounds like a movie, correct? It pretty much is a movie. You are making a movie. So when you do a remote capture, as a performer, what I would do is I would have the tracks to a song, right? I would have them in my ear. I would sing it live and then record that. Then I would send that back to my stage manager or my tech person. My tech person takes all the people that are in that song and they master the vocal tracks together. They lay them all together so that it's one vocal track of all the people singing in that song. Then the technician will then send that back to the actors. The actors will then lip sync a video to themselves singing, okay? So then everyone that was in the song will then take the video, send it back to the tech person. The tech person will master the video, then lay the video track and the vocal tracks. And then pretty much that's where you make your movie. You're creating a movie at that point, which is why we had to get another set of rights, which we're calling remote rights, so that you can essentially make a movie and then stream it to your patrons, okay? Those are essentially how live stream and remote stream works. You know, I was having a conversation earlier where most people are using live stream as a safety net. You know, we don't know if we're going to be able to how many people we're going to have in our theater in July and August and September and October of next year. So what I'm finding is a lot of people are looking at shows that have streaming rights as a safety net. So say they were planning on performing in June and they're allowed to have 100% of their seating, or 75% of their seating. And they get through one performance and then all of a sudden numbers spike and quarantine happens and they're not allowed to have anyone in their theater again. At that point, at least they have a live capture that they could then schedule stream, and then schedule stream to those people who've purchased tickets already, or sell more tickets to that show. It's a good way of securing a safety net for yourself for the future, when we just don't know what's going to happen. We are just not sure how that's going to work. So if you have questions, start adding, posting those questions. I can answer a couple now, Chris, if there's some there, or
we do. We have some that are starting to come in.
Okay.
A reminder, everybody, please use that Q&A box, because that's the way we're going to be able to ask those questions for you. We do have a question from Loween, which is kind of specific to her theater, but I think we can generalize a little bit.
Sure.
And that's that they were slated to do Shrek Junior this month. They are now canceling that plan until they know when they can reopen. They've had some issues in speaking with MTI about their contract and check that haven't been found. But what would you do in a case like that if you're having to cancel a performance because it was originally scheduled to go? What process would you use for that?
You would, anytime you're canceling performance, you need to send an email to your account rep stating that you've canceled it. It's really, really important that you do that before the performance dates. We've been a little more lenient during this time because we know things are crazy. But just send us an email saying, I need to cancel Shrek due to, obviously, COVID. Are you postponing it? Are you canceling it? You have to let us know what the distinction is. Or do you just want to postpone it for future dates? Do you want to completely cancel it? And then, we'll go from there and let you know what has been canceled or if it's been postponed. What a lot of people have been doing, probably mostly in schools, not so much community theaters, but what they have been doing is either postponing it for a year, or they've been canceling it and leaving their money on account for future use. And in a school setting, that makes complete sense because a lot of that money goes right back to the school board. And a lot of teachers, what they were saying is they're not sure if they're going to have the funding come next year. So they wanted to be able to secure it. So they've just left it on account. So whatever you want to do, just make sure you inform us in detail in your first email. Just saying, I'm canceling due to COVID. Please cancel my production. I'm not sure when I can do it again. Or I'd like to postpone due to COVID. I'm thinking, can you please postpone it for 1 year, or can you postpone it to a future date of such and such? And again, the other thing I want to point out is we are all working from home at MTI. We are not back in our office yet. So we have people working from home. We also have, unfortunately, our staff, our headcount is lower than it was back in March. And people are also working less hours. So please bear with us as we get back to you and as we respond to emails. We're not being as responsive as possible. We're trying to get to every email. It's taking a little time. If you have questions specifically about COVID and how to deal with that, our website we have FAQs about every question that has come in during this whole period. So it's a really, really, really good place to start. And if you don't have an answer, you can always reach out to someone and know that. But just know our website has a lot of information there for those specific questions. So it's always start there.
Great. Thank you, John. We have a question from Adam Miller that's been upvoted 4 times. So I think this is one that a lot of people are talking about.
Okay.
The website references past productions. Could you speak to what you consider a qualifying past production is?
I'm not 100% sure in what reference past productions, but I think maybe, and I don't know if you could elaborate on that a little more in the question. I'm not like past production to me. I think what we're saying is we understand there are some productions that people did not cancel or did not postpone. Past productions from like April, May, June that are still in our system that we haven't been contacted yet. So if you do have a past production, if you've had a production that happened and you haven't canceled or you haven't postponed, we need to know what to do with that. We're trying to actively contact everyone, but it was several thousand productions between March and September. So if you had a past production, if you haven't contacted us, please do so as soon as possible so that we know what to do with that. Right now, we have assumed that there were no performances in April, May, or June of any shows. That is just an assumption we made. We still need to contact people, but we are assuming that those productions haven't happened. If you did have a production in one of those months and you go into your My MTI, you'll probably see that the performance dates have been moved to December of 2021. That was our arbitrary date to move stuff to, just until we can actually work through the process with people and understand what they've done. I hope that answers your question. If there's another part to it, I'm happy to answer that also.
Adam did follow up with regarding scheduled streams or on demand, I think.
Oh, past productions of scheduled streaming on demand, sure. If you have a show like Shrek that you did last year, and you had a video license and you videotaped your production, you have the right to schedule stream that production, okay? All you would need to do is contact your account rep and say, I want to schedule stream my production from such and such. I'm sure most of you know this by now, but MTI has partnered with Showtix for You, and Showtix for You is our official platform for streaming. And the reason we do that is because one of the first things we tried to do is try and understand how you're going to pay royalties for a stream production. And it became obvious very quickly that it's impossible to anticipate how many people are going to stream a show or you know how you're going to pay that royalty. So what we're doing is through Showtix for You, they will literally collect a percentage based on the ticket sales that you sold. So if you were doing, say you had a production of Shrek that you did last year and you wanted to schedule stream it now, you can schedule stream it, collect the ticket price, sell tickets. That money will be collected from Showtix. Showtix will know that Shrek is at a 15%. So it will automatically deduct the 15% royalty. They will send us that information along with the payment. And then you will get a final accounting, and then whatever money is left over, you will receive that money. That was it's not perfect. I know there's concerns for a lot of people, but it was the easiest way for us to be able to manage those royalties without having to follow up again, you know, without having to create a box office report, then send it to us, and then we bill you for the royalty. Then we have to collect the royalty. This was just the easiest way to be able to make it seamless for you and efficient for us.
Great.
So that's the way you can do that.
We have a question from Dennis that was upvoted, which is, how long in the future can we secure live stream on-demand rights for? 2021-22 season, 22-23 season also? We're trying to decide how much to invest in the equipment. Is live streaming a new normal that stays with us?
I'll answer the last part of that first. I don't know if it's going to stay with us. You know, right now, a lot of the authors have taken the position of let's wait and see if we want to continue this. But what I will tell you is we issue licenses 18 months in advance, okay? If you get a license for a show a year from now and that show has streaming rights, you will have your streaming rights in a year from now. When we issue your license, it is for specific dates, right? In that license, you will have a streaming license. If you return that streaming license that's associated with that contract, you will absolutely have streaming rights for that period. Okay? I think that answers your question. I think I hope that answers your question. But if you get a license right now for a year from now, for 2020, for September of 2021 or October of 2021, and it has a streaming license, you will absolutely be entitled to streaming your show in 2021 if you wanted to.
Great, thank you. Question from Jared Kopp. What are the chances that we can get rights to shows that have not recently been available due to current Broadway revivals or touring productions now that those productions are not currently occurring? Is any of that being considered?
Every day. We have conversations with the touring producers and Broadway producers and stuff about the shows. The unfortunate thing, I mean, with the exception of a handful of shows, most tours are expecting to remount and go out. I know we just spoke to the Come From Away tour, and they are still anticipating going out at some point next year. The same thing with Les Mis and Annie and Fiddler, Tootsie. All of those tours are planning to go out next year. Or that's the information I have right now. I don't know how that will change, when it will change, but if it does change, for sure we will let you know. But as of right now, the shows that are restricted are still restricted until people can figure out exactly what they're going to do as far as touring, unfortunately.
Great, thank you. Susan has a question. If our intention is to produce a show live next summer and we want to acquire a streaming license as a potential backup option, what happens to the streaming dollars investment if we end up not needing to use the live stream option?
I'm assuming you're talking about the $75 streaming license fee. It's a safety net, and the obligation to MTI is basically just the $75. You would have to you would have to send in your streaming license, and that is a $75 fee. Other than that, there is no obligation. You're not obligated to any additional royalties or anything other than that $75. If you get to the point that you don't need to stream, then there's no addition. You would pay your regular royalties, and there's no streaming royalties on top of it. As far as setting up equipment and all of that, I think I don't know how to answer that question. It's not my world. I don't know how equipment rentals are working or any of that. But I would say if you're doing it as a safety net, I would probably look into the rental more than the purchase at that point. I think it just makes more sense.
Great. We have the next three questions are all kind of related to the same topic, so we'll kind of lump them together a little bit. Do we have to use Showtix for streaming, from Dan? And then following up, is Showtix for you the only approved streaming platform we use on the stage for our ticketing, and they support streaming? Can we use them, or do we have to use Showtix for you, from Jason? And then we'll follow up with the third question after you've got those two.
Right now, we are requiring everyone to use Showtix because it's the only way that we can manage the royalties. Because the partnership we have with Showtix actually they have built into their system the royalty collection and the royalty accounting and payout. Now, there have been instances where you sell tickets from one platform and then stream through Showtix. The other thing is, it was the only way for us to guarantee authors that it will be password protected, that it has all the securities in place that the authors are requesting to have in place. So we built the platform, Showtix for You built the platform based off of our specs that we can say to the authors, we guarantee that we know it's a unique code and only one person can watch it at a time. Oh, let me rephrase that. only one device can stream the show at a time, okay? We also know that the securities are all there, so you can't record it, you can't do any of that from Showtix. You also have the royalties in place. With that said, we have had instances where we can work it out so that you can sell tickets on one platform, but then stream through Showtix for you, okay? And that would have to be a special situation because we'd have to figure out how to deal with the royalties at that point.
Which kind of ties into the question that Susan had, which is what if we want to do a live stream of a past production via Showtix for you and have it be free to our patrons as kind of a holiday gift? We'd obviously need to pay for the streaming license, but how would the royalties work since the percentage of sales method wouldn't apply?
Sure. What we would do is there is a minimum royalty. Right now we're charging $35 per performance as a minimum against the royalty percent. So if you're charging $0, you would pay a minimum of $35 to stream that title. And that's pretty much across the board right now.
Great. From Gay, we have a question. John at the Ojai Art Center Youth Branch paid for video rights recently. How do we get the remote performance rights for Frozen Kids?
For Frozen Kids, the remote performance rights are only available to accredited schools, elementary, middle schools. The streaming rights for Frozen Kids are not available to performing arts centers at the moment. The way the Disney titles work, let me explain that really quick in a little bit of time I have. Disney, the original streaming rights they gave were for all of their titles, but only for accredited schools and scheduled screens. As of about a week and a half ago, they expanded that for a limited number of titles. For Beauty and the Beast Junior, Little Mermaid Junior, High School Musical Junior, and Winnie the Pooh Kids, you have streaming and remote rights for all those titles for everyone. Whether you're a community theater, you're a school, a performing arts center, you can license, stream, and remote capture a performance with any age performance for those 4 titles. For Frozen Kids, you can stream and remote capture, but it's only for accredited schools. All the other Disney titles are still only scheduled stream for accredited schools. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And I just want to point out one other thing too. MTI has opened up all of their junior titles to everyone. There is no age limit right now for our junior titles. If you wanted to do Matilda Junior, you could do it with adults if you want to do the junior version. So just know that that's available to you also.
Great. From Darlin, we have a question. Within each of the streaming options, are there geographical restrictions on where the license would cover in terms of our selling tickets to people in other markets than our local area to watch the production?
In our streaming license, there's a clause in there that says you will sell tickets to your normal path of sales. So basically what we're intending is that you promote and market in the same way you would a live performance. So that's kind of built in. What we don't want is selling tickets to your production in, Australia or somewhere else. But if you've normally done that, like if you post something on your Facebook, then you post on your Facebook. And as long as it's within your normal marketing venue, that's fine.
I think that might answer kind of part of Cal's question that he had too. Adam was asking, so must you have applied for video rights in advance? Can you add those on to your contract?
You can add them on. There's always the question, how did you capture it if you didn't have a video license? But we kind of just let you add it on, assuming the show actually has video license to add on.
Great. We're almost done with questions, actually. Sherry Nash, if I email my contract and payment information prior to the due date, which is now passed, but have not heard back from my rep, will the contract still be honored?
Um, yeah, I can't guarantee that. Well, right now, probably, because the reason we do those expiration dates is because of tours and tour dates. Right now, that's kind of not being captured. It just depends on the title, though. It depends on if it's a title that is planning to be toured or not. I can't guarantee you 100% it'll be honored. More than likely, I would say yes, but I can't guarantee that at the moment.
This is a loaded question. I'm sorry, but I think some people have this question. From
Go for it.
Sarah. Hi, John. Can you talk about text changes, adaptations to the book of musicals so scenes would make sense in a Zoom-like setting? I know some players are already adapting their own works for a virtual space and understand that not every artist has the ability to do that themselves.
Well, first of all, I mean, all of our rules still apply. If there are any changes to the script or score, they must be pre-approved. However, we know in a Zoom setting, there's incidental music that is probably going to be non-existent, that you may not even need. There are times when you're going to need to go to blackout, even on the screen, to just kind of like, you know, you might want to throw up a slide that says, you know, 4 years have passed, or I don't know, stuff like that. If you're making, I don't even want to call them changes, but if you're making edits that will not change the content of the musical, it's fine. Like if you're cutting, you know, if you're doing it on Zoom and there's, you know, a 62 measure dance break, clearly we understand you're not doing a dance break. You know, what some people have done is they've done maybe 3 or 4 measures and they've taken photos of people, like still photos of people dancing, like, and then kind of did a slideshow of that just to show kind of an idea that it was a dance break. You know, get creative with it. Get creative as much as you can, but we do understand that in those instances with like dance breaks and with incidental music, you're going to obviously have to make some edits. And we understand that, but making a change is different than making an edit. And I think you understand the nuance there between the two.
I know we're almost at time. Do you have time for 2 more, John?
I have as much time as you have.
Good, then maybe we can get through these. From Jared, we have Frozen Junior rescheduled for spring of 2021 with plans to only do live performances. We expect to do this with a socially distanced audience, which will cut our audience size by 50 to 60% per performance. What are the chances that MTI could get Disney to lift the $15 maximum ticket price restriction in light of this new seating arrangement that we have to deal with?
You know, that's a good question. That's come up a lot on our junior titles. Obviously, you have a flat license. So the person who asked this is obviously a school or a organization that received a flat license. The reason we have the $15 limit in there is because you're literally paying a flat fee. You're not paying a per performance royalty. What I would suggest you do is, if you want to change your ticket prices, change your license from a flat fee to a per performance royalty. Then you can charge whatever you want to charge, and then we'll collect the appropriate royalty based on that. That would be the easiest thing to do.
Great, that's a great one to know. From an anonymous attendee, there may or may not have been recordings done without permission before I arrived on this job. Would those be available to stream?
What I would say is, if the title has an existing video license, even though you may not have gotten the video license, if it has an existing video license, we can give you a retroactive video license, and then we can give you a streaming license.
Great. And our last question is from Darlin. Also, with the captured streaming options, how is the limit on how many performances determined? Is it a per show royalty to stream? Is the time frame open-ended to offer the streamed show?
Again, we're going to issue a license based on the performance dates that you give us, and your license is valid for those dates. dates. If you want to do 10 performances in those dates, or you want to do 20 performances, you can do that. In the streaming world, remember, you're going to pay a minimum per performance, or you're going to pay a percentage of your sales, whichever is greater. So, say you collected $250 in ticket sales and your royalty is 10%. That is $25. Well, $25 is less than the $35, so we're going to take the minimum of the $35. Does that make sense? So, whatever I think you have to do you have to figure out what works best for you in your scenario. But if you think you can sell enough tickets to cover the $35 minimum, do it. Have as many performances as you like. There is no limit to that.
I'm going to add a quick follow-up to that question.
Sure.
Let's say you did a live stream version of whatever show right now, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Yeah. And you decided you wanted to do a revival of it 6 months later with that same recording. Would you just apply for the rights again?
You would apply for streaming rights for that and just give us the new dates, and then we'll issue a new license for the streaming performances for those dates.
Great. And Adam, snuck one in there. What would you expect the time frame to be if we request the streaming rights for a show that is not already pre-approved?
That's a tough one. Look, we've been waiting on answers for streaming rights for shows that we asked for back in March and April, and we still are waiting on some. Some we get an answer within minutes. I can't. Here's what I've been telling people. If you are planning on doing a show that does not have streaming rights, but you feel it's important for you to have that safety net, I would say you wait until the very last moment you can. And if you still don't have an absolute yes, I would switch to another show. That's just my personal opinion, because I can't guarantee when I'll get an answer, if I'll get an answer, and if the answer will be yes. I don't know. And the last thing I would want you to do is start to go down a path of hiring a director and a stage manager and going through that whole process and then having to change shows at the last minute. I would say, right at the very beginning, I would make that decision early on to know if you really need that safety net, then pick a show that already has streaming rights. It's the easiest way at the moment. I know it's not the best answer, but it's the best honest answer I can give you right now.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you for taking some extra time with us today, too, and branching that out for another 8 minutes. Thank you for your time today. Thank you, Music Theater International, for doing everything you're doing for us. From the time that this started happening back in March, you have always been out there advocating for us and finding alternatives for us and getting us that information. I love seeing those emails come through that have new information and new titles that are suddenly available. And it's just been great to see how much of an advocate you've been for us out here in the community theater world. And we really do appreciate that, John, and all the support you give to ACT.
Thank you, Chris. I think anyone who knows me knows this. I think, what you guys do and all the effort and all the time, it's important to the industry. It's sort of the backbone of who we are as an industry. And we recognize that and we understand that. And we're trying our best to give you as many tools and as many options as possible. I hope everyone realizes that, we can only extend rights that we get from authors, but we're trying. Like every day I'm out there asking about different rights and about different stuff. So keep your questions coming in. I think I am so excited by how innovative and how creative and how persistent everyone is being during this time. And, as you said, Chris, MTI is going to be there right alongside you, and we're going to try our best to help you get through it in a way that makes sense and that is healthy and we'll have something stronger on the other end. I really do. I think as a community, we're going to have something that's really amazing on the other side. So thank you all for everything that you do and all the time and energy you put into it. And know that, you know, your questions that come to MTI are not falling upon deaf ears. It may take us a little while to kind of respond and get there, but we're hearing them all and we're trying our best to pivot and accommodate what we need to do. So
Great.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, John, and for everybody at MTI, give our thanks to them also.
I will.
I want to remind everybody that we have some great things coming up. This isn't the only thing that we're doing live and virtual right now. Our fall 2020 webinar series is going on. These are 12 curated workshops. Our next one comes up on Friday, October 16th at 4 to 5 Eastern, 3 to 4 Central, 2 to 3 Mountain, and 1 to 2 Pacific. And that is Stage Combat Without Fear, a Safe Approach. There are some other great classes, so we really do encourage you to check those out on the website. We would love to see you attending those. Also, don't forget, the latest information you can find is on our website, AACT.org, which will include all those classes, the other great webinars we have coming up, and we also have information about AACT Fest on there too. So we'd love to see what you're doing in your theaters too. So if you have questions, feel free to send us to those. Contact Winston in the office. We're here to help you through these very abnormal times, to take a little young Frankenstein, abnormal times world. So thank you everybody so much for your time today. We're so glad you joined us. Thanks for sticking around for those few extra minutes. We will see you next time. Stay healthy and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.